Part 1. The Sky on Fire. The night began like so many others. Atop the windswept summit of Mauna Loa in Hawaii, astronomers gathered around the Atlas telescope, an instrument designed to scan the heavens for objects that might threaten Earth. Normally, the telescope reported routine blips of light, distant asteroids, the trails of faint comets, or harmless specks of cosmic dust. But on this night, everything changed. At first, it was just a flicker, an unusually bright dot moving against the backdrop of stars. The astronomers leaned closer, recalibrated the lenses, and ran the calculations twice. The dot was not where it should have been. It was moving too fast, too oddly angled, as if ignoring the invisible hand of gravity that guided everything else in the night sky. "Run the trajectory again," one of them said, his voice breaking the midnight silence. Fingers tapped furiously on keyboards, the hum of servers filling the control room. The data came back the same. This was not a routine comet, not an ordinary asteroid. What they had discovered was something new, something unprecedented. The object was officially logged as 3I, Atlas, the third interstellar visitor ever recorded entering our solar system. Unlike anything cataloged before, its brightness surged unpredictably, and its path curved in a way that defied the neat mathematics of celestial mechanics. For the scientists huddled in that Hawaiian observatory, the moment carried the electricity of history being made. The discovery felt like a door cracking open into the unknown. Humanity was peering at a cosmic traveler from beyond our star system. And yet, even in those first hours, one question burned hotter than all the rest. What exactly was it? The news spread like wildfire. Within hours, observatories around the globe turned their eyes toward the mysterious visitor. Social media lit up with blurry images and wild speculation. Was it just another dirty snowball of ice and dust flung into the void from some distant star? Or was it something far more extraordinary, something built, not born? The sky that night seemed alive with possibility. For many, it felt as if we were witnessing a page being written in the cosmic story of humankind. The tension in scientific circles was palpable. Those who had long whispered about alien technology saw new life in their arguments. Those grounded in traditional astronomy prepared for a heated battle to defend reason against sensationalism. But in the control rooms, under the glow of computer screens, a quieter drama unfolded. Astronomers knew that once an interstellar object entered our system, the clock began ticking. These visitors didn't linger. Like cosmic nomads, they drifted in briefly, only to vanish into the deep black forever. If 3I, Atlas, was to reveal its secrets, the world had only a small window of time to watch, record, and learn. Every second mattered. Yet, even as telescopes tracked its course, strange details emerged. The object seemed brighter than it should be, as if sunlight was reflecting off a smooth surface rather than scattering through ice crystals. More troubling was its trajectory. 3I, Atlas, was bending, shifting, almost dodging. It didn't move like a rock. It moved like something else. Could it be artificial? One young researcher whispered, almost afraid of her own words. The room fell silent. For a long moment, no one answered. To suggest such a thing was professional heresy, fuel for tabloids, not serious science. And yet, the thought had taken root, impossible to ignore. Across the ocean, at Harvard University, renowned astrophysicists were already sketching bold hypotheses. Was this another case like Oumuamua, the cigar-shaped object that had baffled the world just 2 years earlier? Or was 3I, Atlas, even stranger, an alien craft silently slipping through the solar system? The world outside had no patience for caution. Headlines blared, "Alien ship in our sky, mystery object, defies science, 3I Atlas visitor or invader." For ordinary people looking up at the night sky, the feeling was surreal. A streak of light had transformed into a global mystery overnight. Children asked their parents if spaceships were real. News anchors debated orbital mechanics as if they were soap opera plotlines. The object had leapt from obscure scientific journals into the beating heart of popular culture. Back in Hawaii, the astronomers worked without rest. Data piled up, graphs bent in impossible directions. Equations refused to balance. The more they studied 3I, Atlas, the less sense it made. Something in the sky was rewriting the rules. And though no one dared say it aloud, many felt the same shiver run down their spines. Perhaps we were not alone. Part 2. The Birth of a Mystery. The world barely had time to process the first headlines before the debate began. Scientists everywhere were scrambling for answers, reporters were knocking down doors, and conspiracy theorists were already certain of the truth. 3I, Atlas was no comet at all. But what was it then? The name that changed everything officially. The strange visitor was catalogued as 3I, Atlas. The name sounded almost dull compared to the frenzy it unleashed. 3I meant the third known interstellar object to enter our solar system. Atlas referred to the telescope that had spotted it. But to the public, it might as well have been the name of a ghost ship appearing on the horizon of space. Another one? Whispered astronomers who remembered the chaos of 2017 when Oumuamua had streaked past Earth. That first interstellar traveler had already ignited years of speculation. Long, cigar-shaped, and oddly reflective. Oumuamua had been called everything from a fractured asteroid to an alien probe scanning our world. Now, barely 2 years later, here was another one. To some, it was proof. To others, it was coincidence. To everyone, it was a mystery too big to ignore. The shape of trouble. When early images of 3I, Atlas, were processed, they didn't fit neatly into the expected boxes. Comets should have a tail, asteroids should tumble in predictable ways. But this thing, this silent intruder, broke every rule. Its brightness pulsed erratically. One night it gleamed like polished metal, the next it dimmed like dying coal. Even stranger, it showed no familiar plume of vapor, no dusty trail of ice melting under sunlight. It was there, naked and inexplicable, a wanderer from another world. Scientists were unsettled. The word they used in their papers was anomalous. But in the late-night conversations, when the cameras were off, another word slipped through their lips: impossible. Theories on fire. Within days, the theories multiplied like sparks in a wildfire. Some said it was a fragment of a shattered planet, ejected from a distant star system eons ago. Others argued it was a pristine relic of the early universe, a piece of cosmic time capsule drifting aimlessly until fate brought it here. A bold few whispered it might be artificial, a probe, a derelict craft, or even a beacon. One researcher compared it to finding a bottle on the shore of an infinite ocean. Maybe inside was a message, maybe it was just garbage. But the mere fact that it had reached us meant we weren't as alone as we thought. Echoes of Oumuamua, memories of Oumuamua, only deepened the drama. That first visitor had slipped past too quickly for scientists to pin down its nature. By the time telescopes were aimed, it was gone, leaving behind only photographs and unanswered questions. Now, with 3I, Atlas, astronomers swore they wouldn't make the same mistake. Every telescope, every satellite, every ounce of technology was thrown into the chase. But the more they saw, the more the mystery grew. The public awakens. The news cycle went into overdrive. CNN ran bold graphics of alien spacecraft streaking past Earth. The New York Times published sober op-eds about interstellar visitors. YouTube exploded with videos titled "Alien Ship Caught on Camera" and "NASA Cover-Up." Ordinary people, who had never cared about comets or asteroids, now looked up at the night sky with a new kind of fear and wonder. Was that light above their house just a star or something else? Children asked their parents if aliens were coming. Conspiracy forums posted countdowns to first contact. The object had crossed from science into legend, behind closed doors. While the public argued, scientists met in closed rooms, their faces lit by data screens. Heated debates broke out in hushed voices. It must be natural. There's no evidence of technology. Then explain the trajectory. Explain the light curve. We can't jump to conclusions. We'll lose credibility. Credibility won't matter if this is our first proof we're not alone. These were not the words of tabloids. These were the words of respected astronomers, men and women who had devoted their lives to rationality. Yet even they couldn't deny it. 3I, Atlas, was breaking the rules. The clock is ticking. Interstellar objects don't wait. They don't linger. They cut across the solar system like silent bullets, here for a moment, and then gone forever into the void. Scientists knew they had weeks, maybe months before 3I Atlas disappeared beyond reach. Time itself had become the enemy, so they raced. Every hour, new data came in. Every day, the mystery deepened. And as the world watched, one thing became clear. This wasn't just another rock drifting in from the cold. This was a challenge, a riddle from the stars, and maybe, just maybe, a sign that someone, or something, was out there. Part 3. Signs of the Unknown. The first detailed images arrived in fragments, pixels arranged on glowing screens, numbers scrolling in endless lines. But behind the data was something that felt almost alive, as if the object were teasing the humans who struggled to understand it. The light curve was the first red flag. Normally, a comet brightens gradually as the sun heats its icy surface, then dims as it drifts away. Predictable, calm, law-abiding. But 3I, Atlas, it pulsed. Some nights, it flared like a polished mirror catching a spotlight, dazzlingly bright against the dark sea of stars. Other nights, it shrank to a faint ember, barely visible. It was as though the object were signaling. Astronomers whispered the word, none of them dared say aloud in public. Beacon, the missing tail. Even stranger, 3I Atlas carried no tail. Comets are famous for them, ghostly trails of vapor and dust stretching millions of miles. Yet here, nothing. The object slipped silently through space, a sleek bullet against the void. Some argued it was a new kind of interstellar ice, too dense to sublimate. Others countered, impossible. Every simulation, every model, said the same thing. It should have a tail. Then maybe it's not a comet, one voice suggested in the dead of night, the words sending a chill through the observatory. The twist in the path. When trajectory data came back, the room fell into chaos. The object wasn't just moving fast, it was changing course. Not by much, just enough to be undeniable. A fraction of a degree here, a subtle bend there. But in the vast emptiness of space, even the smallest deviation was a thunderclap. If it were a comet, the cause would be simple: outgassing, jets of vapor pushing against the surface. But there was no vapor, no tail, nothing. It moved, some whispered, as if under control. Fear in the numbers. The data arrived at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. Rows of experts pored over it. Equations were written, erased, rewritten. Computers spat out probabilities that made no sense. "What's the margin of error?" one engineer demanded. "Zero," came the reply. The room went silent. The object was shifting its trajectory, and no natural explanation fit the evidence. At that moment, even the most skeptical scientist felt a tremor of unease. The world reacts. When the anomalies leaked to the press, panic rippled outward. News channels showed glowing graphics of an object weaving unnaturally past planets. Social media exploded with theories. It's a probe scanning Earth. It's an alien ark searching for survivors. It's a weapon testing its path. Hashtags trended worldwide. For the first time in decades, people looked up at the night sky, not with wonder, but with suspicion. A midnight debate. At Harvard, a closed-door meeting brought together leading astronomers. Coffee cups littered the table. Voices rose, sharp and desperate. "This is propulsion. There's no other explanation. Don't be absurd. It's natural. It has to be." Then explain the light pulses. Explain the missing tail. Explain the shift. The room grew hotter, not from the coffee, but from fear. They were scientists, bound to evidence. But the evidence itself was beginning to look like science fiction. One researcher slammed a fist on the table. "If we don't admit the possibility, we're lying to ourselves." Silence followed. For a moment, no one breathed. The uneasy night. That night, telescopes across the world swiveled in unison, tracking the mysterious intruder as it carved its silent path across the heavens. In Chile, in Hawaii, in Spain, every eye on Earth seemed fixed on the same point of light. And with every flicker, every deviation, the object whispered back a question humanity had never been ready to answer. What if it isn't just a rock? The mystery was no longer scientific alone. It had become psychological, cultural, almost spiritual. People wanted answers. Scientists feared them. And the object itself remained silent, slipping through space like a secret no one could hold. 3I. Atlas was no longer a curiosity. It was a challenge, and it was only just beginning. Part 4. The Alien Hypothesis. The rumors had been circling for weeks: the flickering light curve, the missing comet tail, the unexplained trajectory shift. All of it pointed to one possibility, too dangerous for most scientists to say out loud. But then, it happened. At Harvard University, in a modest lecture hall packed with reporters and researchers, a respected astrophysicist stepped forward. His voice was calm, his words precise, but his conclusion detonated like a bomb. "We must consider the possibility that 3I, Atlas, is not natural. It could be an artificial object, perhaps even a probe." The room froze. Cameras clicked. Journalists gasped. In that instant, a quiet scientific mystery became a global firestorm. Shockwaves. Within hours, the quote was everywhere. CNN plastered it across their broadcast. Fox News ran a headline in bold, "Alien Ship?" On Twitter, hashtags exploded, "Alien Probe, Atlas Mystery, First Contact." For the public, the line between science and science fiction vanished. Some cheered in excitement, "We're not alone." Others panicked, "Are they here to invade?" Preachers thundered from pulpits, politicians scrambled for statements, and children stared wide-eyed at the sky, imagining ships hidden among the stars. What had been a riddle for astronomers had become a drama for all humanity. Inside the war room, behind closed doors, government agencies scrambled. The Pentagon summoned intelligence officers. NASA was ordered to produce daily briefings. The European Space Agency held emergency meetings. "What if it is a probe?" one general demanded. "Then it's been here before," a scientist replied grimly. "Objects like this don't just appear once. We've probably missed hundreds." The implication was terrifying. If 3I Atlas was artificial, then Earth had been watched long before we noticed. The skeptics fight back. Not everyone agreed. Renowned astronomers slammed the theory as reckless, a betrayal of science. "This is dangerous nonsense," one declared on BBC News. "There is no evidence of alien technology. It's a comet. An unusual comet, yes, but still a comet." But the skeptics had a problem. Every time they spoke, the data betrayed them. The light curve still pulsed. The trajectory still shifted. The silence from the object felt deliberate, like the refusal to answer a question. Skepticism demanded proof. Mystery demanded imagination. And imagination was winning. A world on edge. As days passed, paranoia seeped into everyday life. Conspiracy theorists posted grainy photos of UFOs hiding behind clouds. Survivalists stocked bunkers. Religious leaders declared it a sign of the end times. But for millions, it wasn't fear they felt, it was wonder. Humanity had stared at the stars for thousands of years, asking the same question, "Are we alone?" Now, for the first time, the answer felt close enough to touch. The scientist who broke the silence, the Harvard professor who had spoken out, was suddenly thrust into global celebrity. He was praised by some as a visionary, condemned by others as reckless. Journalists camped outside his office. Talk shows begged for interviews. But behind his calm demeanor, he carried a private fear. The data was undeniable. Something about 3I Atlas didn't fit any natural model. But if he was right, if it truly was a probe, then who had sent it? And what did they want? He often stared at the night sky from his balcony, whispering a question only the stars could hear. "Are you watching us right now?" The leak. One night, an anonymous leak hit the internet. Classified documents, allegedly from a government agency, claiming that 3I had emitted a faint radio signal. The world went into meltdown. Live streams racked up millions of views. Scientists demanded proof. Governments denied involvement. But for the public, denial was meaningless. The story had already taken root. If 3I Atlas was transmitting, then it wasn't just an object. It was a messenger, the divide. The world split into two camps, the believers who saw 3I Atlas as our first evidence of intelligent life. The doubters, who insisted it was nothing more than rock and ice. Families argued at dinner tables. Universities fractured over funding debates. Politicians built campaigns on promises to protect Earth or embrace the cosmic opportunity. And through it all, the object itself sailed silently through space, indifferent to the chaos it had unleashed. The terror of the unknown. As weeks passed, a darker thought emerged. If it was a probe, then it had been sent here for a reason. Was it watching us, studying us, or worse, was it scouting? A chilling possibility spread. 3I Atlas might not be the first. It might be the last warning before something bigger came. The fear was subtle at first, then growing, feeding late-night whispers and anxious dreams. For every person who hoped for friendship among the stars, another feared conquest. 3I Atlas continued on its path, unblinking, silent, and unanswering. But humanity was no longer the same. We had asked the question, "Are we alone?" And now the universe had given us something scarier than silence, a maybe. Part 5. Shifting Paths. At first, the shift was so subtle, so microscopic, that no one outside a few observatories noticed. A decimal point in a trajectory model, a fraction of a degree off course, barely enough to register. But in space, Even fractions matter. A 1-degree deviation here meant millions of miles difference later. And 3I, Atlas wasn't drifting randomly, it was curving, the impossible curve. The discovery came late one night at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. A team of analysts had been tracking the object's projected orbit when one researcher frowned at his screen. "Run that again," he muttered. The numbers came back unchanged. 3I Atlas was no longer following the smooth, predictable arc of a comet. It was bending, as though nudged by an invisible hand. By morning, the finding was confirmed by observatories in Chile, Spain, and Japan. This wasn't human error, this was real, and it was impossible. No natural explanation. When comets shift course, the cause is usually outgassing jets of vapor, pushing them slightly as ice melts in the sun. But 3I, Atlas had no tail, no dust, no plume of vapor. Yet, its trajectory was changing anyway. "It's like watching a car drift on a highway without touching the wheel," one astronomer said, his voice shaky. Another whispered the unthinkable. "It's steering." The panic behind doors, emergency meetings erupted. In Washington, generals and scientists sat shoulder to shoulder in windowless rooms. A projector displayed the orbit of 3I, Atlas, as a glowing red line across the solar system. A second line, calculated days earlier, appeared in blue. The two lines diverged, slowly at first, then dramatically. "Is it heading toward Earth?" a Pentagon official demanded. "No," a NASA scientist replied. "Not directly." "Then where?" A silence fell. Finally, someone said, "That's the problem. It looks deliberate, like it's avoiding planets, plotting a course." The room went cold. The world learns. When the data leaked, the reaction was instant and explosive. Newspapers screamed, "It's moving on its own." News anchors shouted over one another. "Is it a ship? Is it intelligent?" On social media, fear morphed into hysteria. Videos of flashing skies, UFO sightings, and countdowns to invasion flooded every platform. But it wasn't just the public losing control. Behind the scenes, world governments quietly raised threat levels. Radar systems were calibrated, satellites repointed, and though no one admitted it, missile defense systems were quietly placed on standby. The scientists' fracture among astronomers, chaos reigned. Camp 1 insisted it was still natural, perhaps a comet fragment propelled by mechanisms unknown. Camp 2 declared that the evidence pointed to something intelligent. The debates turned venomous. Accusations of bias and career suicide flew like daggers. Once quiet research papers were rewritten with urgency, each fighting to claim the truth. One frustrated astrophysicist was caught on a hot mic saying, "If this isn't artificial, then the laws of physics themselves are broken." Pick your poison. The pulse of fear. As the object curved further, some began to notice a pattern. Its changes weren't random. The deviations followed a rhythm, a subtle mathematical beat, as though 3I Atlas were responding to something unseen. "Like it's listening," whispered one young researcher at an observatory in Spain. The idea spread like wildfire. People began tuning radios, searching for hidden frequencies. Ham radio operators claimed to hear faint hums. Internet forums lit up with talk of coded messages. Governments issued denials. Scientists urged calm, but calm was impossible. Whispers of first contact. One headline in The Guardian summed up the global mood. Not drifting, navigating. If it was navigating, then it was controlled. If it was controlled, then it was built. And if it was built, then someone had built it. The realization was like a thunderclap. Humanity wasn't watching a rock. We were watching a decision. The night of the broadcast. On a chilly evening in October, every major network interrupted programming for a joint announcement. At a podium, flanked by NASA officials, a shaken government representative admitted the truth. The object known as 3I Atlas is demonstrating trajectory changes that cannot be explained by natural processes. While there is no evidence of hostility, the possibility of artificial origin cannot be ruled out. The words hung in the air like smoke. For the first time in history, a government had admitted on live television that something in the sky might not be from Earth. The tension tightens. In living rooms across the globe, families sat frozen. In labs, scientists stared at screens, their hearts pounding. In military bunkers, generals whispered the word they had avoided until now: threat. Every eye turned skyward, searching for a faint glimmer of light, wondering if it was watching back. The object moved on, silent, indifferent, mysterious. But the shift in its path had shifted something deeper, the world itself. 3i. Atlas was no longer just an interstellar visitor. It was a question burning across the heavens, and the answer might change humanity forever. Part 6. A comet from another time. For weeks, the world had been gripped by fear. Headlines screamed of alien probes, governments whispered of threats, and every telescope on Earth tracked the object like prey under a spotlight. But in one quiet corner of the scientific community, a group of researchers proposed something different, something less terrifying, but no less extraordinary. Maybe 3i, Atlas wasn't a ship at all. Maybe it was a relic, a survivor of time itself. The fossil theory Dr. Elena Marquez, a planetary scientist in Madrid, was among the first to voice the theory. Standing before a room of tired colleagues, she gestured at the latest spectrographic data. "Look here," she said, pointing to faint signatures in the light spectrum. "Carbon compounds, water ice, traces of organic molecules. This isn't a machine. This is a body frozen, ancient, older than Earth itself." Her voice carried the conviction of someone who had stared into the abyss and found beauty instead of fear. "What if," she continued, "we're not looking at a threat, but at a fossil, a piece of a world that died billions of years ago, a time capsule from the stars?" The idea spread quickly. If 3i, Atlas, was natural, then it could be one of the oldest objects humanity had ever studied, formed around a distant star before our sun was even born. Imagine it, a shard of ice and dust traveling through interstellar space for billions of years, carrying within it the chemical fingerprints of alien worlds. A cosmic message in a bottle, not written by intelligence, but by time. For some, this theory was a relief. It pulled the conversation back from panic. For others, it was just as unsettling. Because if the object was that old, then it was older than our species, older than our planet, older than human imagination itself. The tests begin. Telescopes across the globe scanned the visitor relentlessly. Spectral analysis confirmed the presence of compounds seen in comets, but with strange irregularities. Some of the carbon structures didn't look quite right. The ratios were off. It was like finding familiar words arranged in a language no one could fully understand. "This is chemistry we've never seen in our solar system," Marquez explained to a BBC interviewer. "It's like holding a fragment of another universe in your hand." Skeptics hold the line, but the skeptics weren't convinced. "If it's just a comet," argued Dr. Samuel Brooks of MIT, "then why the anomalous trajectory? Why the pulsing brightness? Why no tail?" He slammed a finger on the table during a panel discussion. "You can dress it up as ancient ice all you like, but the data doesn't lie. This thing moves like it's alive." The room had gone silent. No one dared say it, but the implication hung in the air. The split widens. By now, the scientific community was fractured. One camp saw 3i Atlas as an artifact of deep time, a natural wonder, priceless and unthreatening. The other saw it as proof of intelligence, silent and deliberate, passing through our home like a ghost ship. Conferences turned into battlegrounds. Papers were torn apart before peer review. Careers trembled on the edge of ruin. In private, some researchers admitted they no longer cared which side was right. What mattered was this: something was out there, and it wasn't supposed to be. The human imagination runs wild. While scientists argued, the public spun its own myths. Documentaries called it the alien arc. Novelists described it as the last fragment of a shattered civilization. One viral tweet captured the global mood perfectly. "It doesn't matter if it's a comet or a ship. Either way, it's not from here. And that means everything." A message without words. Back in Madrid, Dr. Marquez stood outside her observatory late one night, staring at the speck of light streaking silently across the heavens. She imagined it as a time capsule, carrying within it the story of a world long gone. What stars had it orbited? What forces had ripped it free? Had life ever touched its icy surface? She felt a pang of awe and fear, because whether natural or artificial, 3i Atlas was proof of something humanity had never truly confronted. The universe was not quiet. It was full of travelers. The uneasy truth. The fossil theory didn't kill the alien hypothesis. It only fueled it. For every scientist who called it a comet, another pointed to the trajectory. For every headline that said ancient ice, another screamed alien ship. The world wanted answers. The object gave none. It simply kept moving, silent, enigmatic, eternal, leaving behind only questions. 3i Atlas was no longer just an object in the sky. It was a mirror, forcing humanity to confront its deepest fears and wildest hopes. Whether comet or craft, it was rewriting our place in the universe, and the story was far from over. Part 7. The people behind the telescopes. The world saw the headlines, the screaming talk shows, the wild speculation online. But behind the curtain of panic and wonder, there were people, real men and women, who lived with 3IATLAS every single day. And for them, the mystery wasn't exciting, it was exhausting. The sleepless watchers. At Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii, the birthplace of the discovery, astronomers hadn't slept properly in weeks. Their eyes were bloodshot, their hands trembling from endless coffee, their minds sharpened to a razor's edge by adrenaline and dread. Every night, they adjusted their instruments, chasing the object as it streaked across the heavens. Every morning, they argued over the data, voices hoarse from lack of rest. "It feels like the sky is haunting me," one researcher confessed to a colleague. "I close my eyes, and I see that damn dot still moving." The weight of history. For some, the pressure was unbearable. They knew that whatever 3I, Atlas truly was, history would remember their names. The first to call it a comet, or the first to call it a ship, both would be carved in stone. One young scientist, barely 30, wrote in her private journal, "I should be excited. Instead, I feel like I'm being crushed. What if we're wrong? What if we make the wrong call, and humanity pays the price?" The journal entry would later be leaked, spreading online like wildfire. It became a symbol of the human cost hidden beneath the spectacle. The clash of egos. In conference halls from Boston to Berlin, the debates grew violent. Renowned professors shouted at one another like rivals in a street fight. Careers hung in the balance. Funding was threatened. Reputations teetered. "You're blinded by fear," one shouted. "You're drunk on science fiction," another snapped back. Security guards once had to intervene at a symposium in Geneva when two researchers nearly came to blows over the trajectory data. These weren't just disagreements. These were battles for the future of truth itself. Haunted lives away from the spotlight, the toll was darker. Some scientists reported nightmares, visions of giant ships blotting out the stars, or of a silent eye watching Earth from the void. Others began to avoid their families, retreating into work, consumed by obsession. A technician in California described it bluntly. "It's like the object has infected us. It's not just in the sky anymore. It's in our heads, the military pressure." Meanwhile, military officials circled like hawks. In quiet briefings, generals pressed astronomers for answers. Could it be hostile? Is it transmitting? Do we need to prepare for contact? The scientists, trained to measure data in decimals and probabilities, were now asked for absolutes. Yes or no, friend or foe. But the truth was that science had no absolutes to give, and the pressure was breaking them. Heroes and villains. The media picked its favorites, elevating some scientists to celebrity status, while vilifying others as liars or cowards. A Harvard astrophysicist was branded the alien prophet on magazine covers. Meanwhile, skeptics like Dr. Last for greed. Brooks of MIT received death threats from conspiracy theorists accusing him of hiding the truth. In reality, both men lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, unable to answer the same simple question. What are we looking at? The cracks begin to show. At one observatory, an exhausted astronomer collapsed mid-shift, rushed to the hospital after suffering a stress-induced seizure. In Europe, a graduate student walked away from her PhD, muttering, "I didn't sign up to watch the world end." The mystery of 3I Atlas wasn't just straining science, it was breaking people, the silent enemy, and through it all, the object remained silent. It gave no answers, no messages, no signs of hostility or friendship. It simply moved, indifferent to the chaos it created below. To the people tracking it, this silence became unbearable. Better a signal, better a threat, better something, anything but this endless, mocking silence. One astronomer summed it up in a late-night interview, his voice shaking. "Sometimes I think the object doesn't need to do anything to destroy us. We're destroying ourselves." The human question. As the weeks wore on, humanity's deepest question shifted. It was no longer, what is 3I Atlas? It became, what will it do to us if we never find out? For the people behind the telescopes, the mystery had ceased to be cosmic. It had become personal, an intimate battle between hope and fear, reason and madness. And the longer they stared into the dark, the more the dark seemed to stare back. 3I Atlas was no longer just an object in the sky, it was a test. Not of physics, not of astronomy, but of humanity itself. Part 8. The Media Storm. The scientists were cracking, the generals were whispering, the public was restless. But in the 21st century, nothing spreads faster than fear, and nothing fuels fear like media. 3i Atlas had started as a dot in the sky. By now, it was a hurricane of headlines. The headlines scream, the New York Times ran sober articles. A visitor from the stars raises questions about humanity's place. Fox News blared in red, alien ship? Officials can't deny possibility. BuzzFeed went with the viral spin. 10 reasons the mystery object could be aliens, and 3 reasons it's just space junk. Every outlet twisted the story to fit its audience. Caution was boring. Certainty sold. The talk show circus late-night television turned the mystery into comedy. Comedians joked about aliens demanding student loan forgiveness or asking for TikTok tutorials. Studio audiences laughed, but behind the humor was unease. The punchlines never erased the question burning in everyone's mind. What if it's real? Meanwhile, daytime talk shows invited experts with wildly different views. A scientist would insist it was a comet. A conspiracy theorist would counter that it was an alien mothership. The host stoked the fire, cutting between shouting guests as ratings soared. It was chaos disguised as conversation. The social media inferno. On Twitter, hashtags trended globally. Number Atlas Mystery, number Alien Probe, number Comet Truth. TikTok filled with viral videos. Teens pointing their phones at the sky screaming, "They're here." Fake UFO clips edited with lens flares and ominous music. Self-proclaimed leakers showing blurry documents stamped with fake NASA seals. Millions watched, millions believed. Facebook groups ballooned overnight, alien truth seekers, defenders of Earth, First Contact 2020. Some preached peace, others called for preemptive strikes. The object wasn't just in the sky, it was in every feed, every timeline, every pocket. The politicians' move in it didn't take long for politics to weaponize the mystery. One senator declared, "If this is a threat, we must be ready. We need funding for defense now." Another countered, "This is an opportunity. If it's intelligent, we should prepare for dialogue, not war." Elections pivoted around the object. Campaign ads showed candidates standing under starry skies, promising safety or promising discovery. 3i Atlas had become a political pawn, a symbol that could mean anything to anyone. The grifters and the prophets. Where there is fear, there is profit. Self-proclaimed contact specialists sold $99 guides on how to welcome alien visitors. Survivalists pushed $5,000 bunker kits for when the motherships arrive. Streaming platforms greenlit documentaries with titles like Alien Ark, The Visitor Among Us, and then came the prophets. Charismatic preachers filled stadiums, claiming 3i Atlas was a sign from God, either salvation or judgment. Crowds wept, sang, donated. Some quit their jobs, convinced the end was near. The fake news epidemic. Amid the noise, false stories multiplied. One viral post claimed the object had released a smaller scout ship that landed in Siberia. Another insisted NASA had received a direct transmission but was covering it up. Doctored videos showed glowing saucers over New York and Beijing, racking up millions of views before being debunked. But by then, the truth no longer mattered. People believed what they wanted. The collapse of trust. Scientists tried desperately to calm the storm, holding press conferences, releasing data, showing graphs, but their voices were drowned out. "No one trusts us anymore," muttered Dr. Elena Marquez in an interview. "They'd rather believe a TikTok than a telescope." Even within academia, mistrust grew. Some accused their peers of hiding data for government agendas. Others refused to share findings, fearing their work would be twisted online. The object in the sky had fractured not just science, but society itself. The world on edge. One night, a live broadcast went viral. A major news anchor stared into the camera and asked the question directly. If this object is an alien probe, then tomorrow could be the most important day in human history, or the last. The words sent a chill through millions of living rooms. Parents hugged their children tighter. Strangers looked nervously at the sky. The storm wasn't just outside anymore. It was inside hearts and minds. The object remained silent. And through it all, 3i Atlas continued its silent journey. No signals, no threats, no promises. Just a flickering light, curving unnaturally, slipping further into the solar system. But its silence was louder than any voice. It allowed every fear, every hope, every nightmare to echo inside it. The media storm raged on Earth. In space, the object remained untouchable, untouching an enigma watching a species tear itself apart. 3I, Atlas, had not fired a weapon. It had not sent a signal. It had not even slowed its path. And yet, it had already conquered us. Part 9. Silence in the Stars. For months, the world had been staring upward. Telescopes, satellites, even backyard binoculars, all eyes fixed on the strange visitor that had divided humanity. It had given no answers, no signals, no threats, only silence. And then, slowly, it began to fade. The vanishing light. At first, the change was subtle. Each night, the object grew a little dimmer, slipping further into the black sea of space. Observatories strained their instruments, pushing their limits, desperate to hold on to the flickering light. "Zoom in harder," one exhausted technician muttered at Mauna Loa. Though he knew the futility of his words, the object was leaving. Not just their view, but their grasp. Every night it dimmed, every morning it left more questions than answers. The last data points. As the object receded, the final streams of data arrived: broken light curves, faint spectrographs, blurred imagery. Each scientist clutched the numbers like dying embers, trying to extract meaning before the flame went out. One chart showed a final, unexplained spike in brightness just for a fraction of a second, as though 3I, Atlas, had flared deliberately. Some claimed it was a last burst of sunlight off ice. Others whispered it was a signal, a wave goodbye, or a mocking laugh. But with no way to confirm, the arguments dissolved into silence. The public's frustration. For ordinary people, the fading of 3I, Atlas, was like a cruel trick. They had been promised answers, teased with the possibility of contact, terrified by the hint of danger. Now, just when the tension was unbearable, the curtain fell. Talk shows grew frantic. Why did it vanish now? What are they hiding from us? Social media exploded with paranoia. It cloaked itself. It landed secretly. NASA is lying. The absence of the object became as terrifying as its presence had been. The empty skies. In cities, people gathered in parks, staring at the heavens. Some wept when they could no longer see the faint dot that had consumed their lives. Others sighed in relief, as if a nightmare had finally passed. But for many, the empty skies felt worse. The dot had been frightening, but it had been something. Without it, there was only emptiness, and emptiness was unbearable. The collapse of obsession. Scientists who had devoted their lives, their health, their sanity to the mystery, now found themselves staring at blank screens. "It's like chasing a ghost that decided to stop haunting us," Dr. Elena Marquez admitted in a quiet interview. Her eyes were hollow from sleepless nights. "We thought it would end with answers. Instead, it ended with silence." Some researchers refused to let go. They reanalyzed old data obsessively, searching for hidden codes in the noise. Others simply walked away, burned out and broken. One graduate student in Chile was found sitting in the observatory long after his shift, whispering to the empty night, "Come back, just come back." The lingering fear governments issued cautious statements. "No threat detected. Object has left observational range." But the words satisfied no one. If it was a comet, why had it shifted course? If it was a probe, why had it left without a word? And worst of all, if it had passed once, could it come again? The silence left behind was not peaceful, it was suffocating. The cultural aftershock. The disappearance of 3I Atlas only deepened its legend. Books were written, films were greenlit, religions adopted it as prophecy, politicians referenced it in speeches about defense and exploration. But beneath the noise was a quieter wound, a deep, collective sense of abandonment. Humanity had glimpsed something vast and mysterious, something that could have changed everything, only to watch it slip away. It was like answering the phone and hearing only static. The final glimpse. One night, an observatory in Australia reported the last confirmed sighting, a faint glimmer, barely more than a pixel, vanishing into the abyss beyond Neptune. Astronomers stood in silence, their instruments still humming, their hearts heavy. The visitor was gone. No answers, no closure. Only the echo of questions too large to bear. 3I, Atlas, had come silently, stirred the world to chaos, and left just as quietly. But in its absence, it left something more dangerous than fear. it left uncertainty. And for a species that craved answers, that uncertainty might be the cruelest truth of all. Part 10. What if? The night skies were quiet again. The faint glimmer that had haunted telescopes, fueled headlines, and shaken humanity had vanished into the deep black 3I. Atlas was gone, but the silence it left behind was louder than thunder. The question that remained in classrooms. Children still asked teachers, was it aliens? In labs, scientists still whispered to one another, what if we missed the signal? And in bars, strangers still argued late into the night, comet or craft. The object had left no answers. Only questions. Questions too vast to be buried, too heavy to be ignored. What if it was natural, just ice and dust, a relic from the birth of another star? That alone would be enough to change history. Proof that the galaxy was full of wandering fossils, each carrying stories older than Earth itself. But what if it wasn't? What if the impossible curves, the flickering light, the silence that felt deliberate, what if all of it pointed to something more? The fear that lingers. For many, the disappearance was not a relief but a terror. Because if 3I, Atlas, was artificial, then it had been here for a reason. It had approached, it had studied, and then it had left. Was it scouting? Was it ignoring us? Or was it simply not interested? Perhaps the most chilling possibility was not that it was hostile, but that we were irrelevant. The hope that endures. And yet, for others, the thought sparked hope. Maybe it had been a messenger, a silent envoy testing the waters of a young civilization. Maybe, in time, others would follow ships not cloaked in silence, but carrying words, greetings, even friendship. The stars above, once cold and distant, now felt alive with potential. Every dot of light might hide a traveler. Every night sky might hold another secret waiting to be revealed. The divide that defines us, humanity, split as it always does between fear and wonder, suspicion and curiosity. Some demanded we build defenses, planetary shields, weapons for a war that might come. Others called for patience, for exploration, for investment in reaching the stars ourselves. But beneath the arguments was a single shared truth. We were no longer the same species we had been before 3I, Atlas. We had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back, even if only for a moment. The legacy of silence. In the years to come, books would call 3I, Atlas, the silent visitor. Movies would depict it as a mothership. Religions would claim it as a sign. Scientists would continue to argue over decimals and data points. But for those who had lived through the storm, the memory was more personal. It wasn't just about what 3I, Atlas was. It was about what it revealed in us, the paranoia, the obsession, the fractures, the courage, the wonder, the unity, however brief. The object had not destroyed us, but it had exposed us. The final thought. One evening, years after the object's disappearance, Dr. Elena Marquez stood once more beneath a starlit sky. She remembered the sleepless nights, the endless debates, the silence that still echoed in her heart. She whispered the question that haunted them all. What if it really was them? And then another, more frightening still, what if it wasn't the last? The stars remained silent, but the silence was no longer empty. It was pregnant with possibility, with danger, with hope. 3I, Atlas, was gone, but the universe was still watching, and humanity, trembling but unbroken, was still watching back.